Hello, hello, hello. So great to be on with all of you today. I have a lot to talk about and I'm going to be doing some fun demos for you as well. Let's see, I have notes. Because I want to make sure that I'm covering everything. Hello, hello, everybody. It's so nice to see you all. Let's see, where do I begin? I think the first thing I wanted to talk about was I was feeling a little fired up today. Hi! I was feeling a little fired up today, and I shared this post about the Johnson & Johnson vaccine being put on hold by the FDA for, rare blood clots, and the fact that, the birth control pill still over here, causing blood clots in many, many people. In fact, thousands of women and girls die in the US every year of blood clots induced by hormonal birth control use. And yet, not doing anything about that, but whatever. Anyways, feeling a little sassy today and a little frustrated about that. So I shared that, and it seems to have really resonated with a lot of you. So it's funny, a lot of you said the same thing. As soon as you saw the news, you thought the same thing as me, and yeah, here we are. Anyway, so that's like my little rant. You can go check out that post if you're curious about that. And I also did a podcast episode on it I think probably about a year and a half ago, with a man named David Rowan. His daughter actually died of a blood clot due to birth control use, and he and his wife started a foundation. They've been raising awareness ever since because they strongly believe that the history of a person who is being prescribed birth control should be taken into account, whether blood clots have happened to anyone in their family, as well as testing. You can do genetic testing to find out if you are prone to having blood clots, and if you are, you shouldn't take the birth control pill. I don't know, just very simple safety precautions to save lives, but apparently, yeah, women sometimes are collateral damage. Just riles me up. Okay. The next thing I wanted to talk about before we get into questions and all the things I want to share with all of you is this past week I have been doing I've been doing a series on progesterone. So what progesterone is, why it's epidemically low in so many of us, what's causing that, as well as how to test it, when to test it, what normal levels of progesterone are, what you should be looking for, and what to do about it, more importantly. Yes, I am saving this live. Don't worry about that. They always get saved in my IGTV. And I also put them on YouTube as well. And shoot, I think the captions have to come afterwards. So I'm going to try the caption thing again. Hopefully it works this time. It did not work last time. I don't know what happened. It's really annoying. But anyways, I wanted to talk about progesterone because the question I keep getting from so many people is, how do I raise progesterone? What do I do? And I just want to say this real quick, everyone. Your hormones don't exist independently of each other. You can't just do something and it's going to just automatically drive up progesterone. That's not how this works. The way to raise progesterone is to consistently ovulate and to have consistent healthy ovulations, because the follicle that's on your ovary, where the egg comes out of, as I've talked about this forever on hair, in my book, Fix Your Period, here it is, just in case you don't have it, as well as, in articles and in my programs. So that follicle turns into what is known as a corpus luteum, right? So this is like a little tiny endocrine gland on your ovary. It actually measured, if you looked at it under an ultrasound, between 2 and 5 centimeters. Sorry. Yeah, centimeters. Yeah, not centimeters. I thought I was saying inches for a second. 2 and 5 centimeters. That's pretty big. If I had my tape measure here, I'd show you. But the point is that if your ovary isn't healthy, if the corpus luteum isn't healthy, if you are highly inflamed, extremely stressed out, nutrient deficient, insulin resistant, or have blood sugar issues, if there's a thyroid problem, you don't have enough thyroid hormone to support your ovarian function, all of these factors are going to play into whether that little tiny corpus luteum produces enough progesterone. So my point here is that you have to, first of all, figure out what's going on with the ovulation side of things. If you are not ovulating consistently, you've got to work on that. And then the next thing is, if you are ovulating consistently, you have to work on whatever it is that could be preventing that ovulation from being a healthy ovulation, as my friend Amy calls it, an efficient ovulation. And that's what's going to produce more progesterone. The younger we are, the more progesterone we produce. I'm learning this now at 41 years old and realizing that I have to be so on point with my health at this age. We all do in our 40s, more so than ever, because you are less hormonally resilient in this decade than you were in your 30s and in your 20s. I'm sorry to be a bearer of bad news, but it's just true. And I feel like your 40s, perimenopause, is truly a time where your body is asking you to be on point with your health. It is an invitation to start looking at places that you have not been paying attention to with regard to how you take care of yourself. So just remember that. So these are the ways to waste progesterone. I mean, everyone's asking me about bioidentical progesterone and whether that's safe, and that's a whole other conversation. There are multiple books on this now. Laura Brydon just came out with a book on perimenopause and menopause, so you can look to that for bioidentical hormone recommendations. I just did a podcast episode with my friend Bree Weisselman, and she talks about this extensively. This is what she does in her practice. My friend Marisa Snyder, she's just come out with a book too. It's called The Essential Oils Menopause Solution, so that's another one. And that has information on that as well. So if you are looking for bioidentical hormone replacement recommendations, then I've got, those are some resources, but you got to work on the foundation. And so we're going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about, what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about all kinds of things, but I want to talk about the root causes of all of these problems that we're experiencing. And, I outlined this in my Fix Your Period program, in my book, Fix Your Period. I talk about it in my program, Harness Your Hormones, which, by the way, is on sale for $27 right now. It's a whole 28-day program. It goes really well with the program in my book. And the point here is that we have to look at these foundational pieces and at least make an attempt. And so I know I talk about nutrition all the time, and I talk about the fact that we need to make sure that we are bringing as many nutrient-dense foods into our diet as possible, because our ovaries need nutrients. They just do. It's just part of how this all works. And I also talk about blood sugar and insulin resistance a lot too. And I know this is not sexy and not fun, but I promise you this will be entertaining. I'm going to test my blood sugar. I'm going to show you how to do this. I talk about this in my book because I feel so strongly about this. I feel like Sarah Gottfried says this. She talks about how she wishes that women were as excited about their blood sugar as they are about their bank accounts. And it's true, because you're depositing into your health bank account every time you take care of your blood sugar, truly. And in your 40s, as you get into your 30s and 40s, you'll notice these blood sugar swings become more and more problematic. And truly, I believe they're at the root of the pain that we experience, the mood swings, all of the things that are associated with our cycles. Because remember, your menstrual cycle, your period, it's a window into your overall health. So it's I talk about it in the book as a barometer of your overall health. And so I'm going to talk about red flags. Maybe I'll talk about them now. But red flags that you should be looking for with regard to your period, that something's going on with your health, is period pain. Period pain that disrupts your life, that requires more than 2 Advil or 2 ibuprofen in the whole period, not just in a day. Period pain that is, causing you to miss work, school, just life in general, heavy bleeding, or periods on the flip side that are just too light, that, maybe you bleed for like half a day. You maybe use 1 or 2 tampons or pads or something like that. Spotting in the lead up to your period. A few days is not a big deal, but spotting for more than 3 days in the lead up to your period, that's a red flag. And that's constantly overlooked by conventional medicine. Don't allow anyone to overlook this. Other things like ovulatory pain, a little twinge in your ovary. Usually it's your right ovary. I don't know, our right ovaries seem to be the boss lady ovaries. A little twinge is not a big deal. But I'm hearing like women are telling me they have 2 or 3 days of excruciating pain. This is not normal. Ovarian cysts, menstrual migraines, or headaches that just knock you out. Raging PMS symptoms. Your mood changes. Your hormones are ebbing and flowing. Your mood definitely changes. There's no doubt about that. Your energy levels change. They're meant to do that. You are not meant to lose your shit over and over again throughout your luteal phase though. So these are the red flags that we should all be looking for. And I know that they have been perpetually normalized in our society, but I can tell you that we've been lied to. We have been lied to for so long about all of this. And it's really time that we start to shift this narrative about life-threatening periods and menstrual cycles as being the norm, because they're not meant to be this way. You are 100% not meant to be suffering and miserable because of your period and your cycle. So just putting that out there. All right, so let's talk about blood sugar, because I feel like this is something that, again, is very confusing and nobody really understands how the cookie causes the ovary problems and the period problems and all these things. So the first thing that's so important for us to understand is that you don't have to be eating cookies or cake or sugar every single day to have dysregulated blood sugar. This is because if you have gut dysbiosis, so gut health issues, GI tract issues happening, what can happen is, this can cause, chronic inflammation and chronic stress in your body. And this raises blood sugar. If you have food sensitivities, that raises your blood sugar. Cortisol raises your blood sugar. Cortisol is a stress hormone. If you're stressed, your blood sugar goes up. So this is not just about diabetes. This is not about being overweight. I see women who are skinny all the time who have blood sugar dysregulation. I've had it. I've seen it over and over again. So just keep that in mind, that this can really impact any of us. And you could be eating perfectly, but you could be stressed as all hell and your blood sugar could be a mess. So it's really important to think about what could be causing your blood sugar. You know your body, you know you. So I encourage everyone to think through that. So the second thing is that you could be eating just too many carbs and not enough protein and fat in your diet, and that could be causing your blood sugar issues as well. And so what happens is dysregulated blood sugar leads to dysregulated insulin. So insulin is the hormone that controls your blood sugar. It's a powerful hormone. I in my book, I talk about this. I talk about the hormone tiers, and I talk about cortisol and insulin as being the top tier hormones, the queen bee hormones. And this is because they have this downstream effect on all the other hormones, on your sex hormones, your thyroid, your melatonin, all of these hormones that influence your menstrual cycle. So it's not just about estrogen and progesterone. It's about all your hormones, because they're all interacting with each other. They're all talking to each other. Again, conventional medicine sort of silos all of our health problems, and it is very confusing because then you have to go to a million different doctors for seemingly unrelated problems, but they're really all connected. So anyway, coming back to blood sugar and insulin. So if you're not having enough carb, or you're eating too many carbs and not enough protein and fat to balance it out, it can raise your blood sugar. And this, can go on for years. And it really does, everyone. Like, it really goes on for years for so many of us. And then oftentimes it's completely unbeknownst to us, right? Because we have no idea what dysregulated blood sugar looks like. So what you're looking for is, with dysregulated blood sugar, I actually have it written here and I wanted to share it with you guys. All right. Unbalanced blood sugar. I'm just going to read it because it makes it a lot easier. All right. Crazy energy highs and crashes. So 1 minute you're wide awake and the next minute you want to pass out. Anyone experience that? Yeah. Definitely. I've experienced that. Sugar and caffeine cravings. So this is like first thing in the morning, mid-afternoon or mid-morning, and then in the evenings as well. Extreme hunger after you've eaten. So, and also sugar cravings after you eat as well, especially after dinner. So if that's something that you experience, likely something's going on there. So if you eat and then 30 or 60 minutes later, you're really hungry again, that's a sign that that meal did not do good for your blood sugar. Difficulty falling asleep and staying asleep at night. Are you waking up in the middle of the night? It could be that your blood sugar is crashing in the middle of the night and it wakes you up. And so this is, this also causes problems for your cortisol. So your circadian rhythm gets out of whack, and then your blood sugar is also not great. And difficulty waking up in the morning. Are you hitting snooze? Do you need a ton of coffee to get out of bed? What's happening with your energy first thing in the morning? And the final thing is moodiness, anxiety, meltdowns, raging PMS symptoms. Do you notice your mood just really tanks in the second half of your cycle or right after ovulation? So these are some of the signs to look for. I'm going to show you how to test your blood sugar, and that's a great step as well. And you can buy just a glucometer this is the glucometer. This is the glucometer. This is the little thing that sticks your finger. But you can buy a set on Amazon, online, at any pharmacy. You don't need a prescription or anything like that. And I explain in the book, I also explain in my Fix Your Blood Sugar protocol exactly how to test, just so that, it's really clear, and then how to interpret what you're seeing. Because again, I want the tools in your hands. I want you to take control. I see a lot of questions here, so I'm going to come to those in a second. What does balanced blood sugar look like? Let's talk about that real quick. You feel consistent energy throughout the day. You're not crashing. You're not feeling like you need a huge caffeine jolt at 10 in the morning or again at 3 p.m. or you need to dip into the candy jar at work, although none of us are working at an office anymore. Minimal cravings. So you don't crave sugar, you don't crave caffeine, alcohol. And alcohol is another one. This is a really challenging one, and I know a lot of people have a sticky relationship, not only with sugar, but with alcohol too, and I get that. I get that this year has put even more of a burden on so many of us. But it's important to recognize this, right? Because this is going to really determine how you feel and how you live your life. And so it's good to be able to recognize that this is potentially a problem. So with blood sugar balance, you don't really crave sweets after a meal. Like you won't really crave anything actually after a meal. You'll find that you're able to get up in the morning and not feel groggy. You'll find that you're able to fall asleep really easily. You'll also find you don't really wake up in the middle of the night as well. So those are some of the signs. Let me make sure I got everything. Oh yeah, stable moods. Your mood isn't crazy. Your PMS symptoms start to dissipate as you regulate your blood sugar. Your period pain starts to dissipate as well. I'm going to talk about why that is in a second. You don't have pain. So your headaches, period pain, things like that will start to go away. So these are some of the signs that we're looking for here. And when it comes to why this happens, so what's really interesting is that dysregulated blood sugar and insulin actually affect the epithelial cells of your blood vessels. And what it does is it causes them to become inflamed. We kind of need our blood vessels. We actually need all our cardiovascular system to work properly. And what's really interesting is that they cause them to be inflamed. So this causes cardiovascular issues. That shows up a lot later on down the line though, typically. But what it does do is they produce these free radicals. And the free radicals are what drives the inflammation in the body. And so this is where we run into problems with blood sugar and insulin. So it really comes down to this, this physical response to the blood sugar and insulin dysregulation in the body. And so when we have these free radicals roaming about and this inflammation is growing and growing, unbeknownst to us in many cases, we start to see these symptoms show up in our periods. And so it's great for us as females, because we have this built-in, warning system, so to speak, our menstrual cycle, telling us that something's wrong. So if you start to notice that your symptoms are getting worse and worse as it relates to your period, it's likely something to do with your blood sugar and inflammation. And remember, the blood sugar can come from food and it can come from mental and psychological stress. So it's all connected. And so if you start to work on the causes of the blood sugar problems, you will likely start to see massive improvements in your menstrual health. So just keep that in mind. Of course, there are other issues as well as it relates to blood sugar. So the first thing is I wanted to talk about how insulin impacts the menstrual cycle, because what you'll see on a direct effect is, first, our ovaries have insulin receptors on them. So makes sense, insulin is necessary for lots of different functions. It's not just about blood sugar. And what happens is, I actually have it in the book here on page 125. So this is the blood sugar chapter, and I'm talking about, how excess insulin raises LH. So that's luteinizing hormone. And so when we have too high LH, we run into problems because what happens is this causes our ovaries to not function properly. And so we need a balance of follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone so that our ovaries can do what they're supposed to do. So this whole thing basically disrupts ovulation. And I actually have a whole diagram in the book where I'm talking about elevated blood sugar and insulin, raises this LH, and then the LH actually causes the ovaries to produce too much testosterone. I'll show you this little diagram right here. You guys can see it a little bit. Yeah. And so what happens is the ovaries are producing too much testosterone. This totally sends a signal to the brain being like, the brain's like, what the hell is going on here? And then that disrupts the brain's signals to the ovaries. So this causes a disruption in ovulation. And you'll see this a lot of times in insulin resistance where a client just doesn't get their period regularly, or, they're not ovulating regularly. So this is something to be looking out for in your own body. The other thing with insulin resistance is that it raises the activity of an enzyme called aromatase. And aromatase's job is to actually convert testosterone to estrogen. So these can be happening simultaneously. This can be happening, in one body and not in the other body. It just really depends on, what your predispositions are. Like, are you predisposed to PCOS genetically? Then you might have an issue where your ovaries are producing, too much testosterone, and you're now having disrupted cycles. If you are, if maybe you're this person, like I'm saying here, right? So high insulin can cause this testosterone to convert to estrogen at too fast a rate. You end up with estrogen dominance, use too much estrogen. Your brain is now getting the signal from your ovary or from your body that there's high estrogen. It doesn't need to send the signals to the ovary to continue the process of, to get it to ovulate. And so then this completely disrupts ovulation as well. So we run into these problems where ovulation just gets disrupted, and you might notice long cycles or really short cycles, or you might notice your period disappears completely. All of these can stem from having dysregulated blood sugar. I've seen this so many times over the years. It's actually totally crazy. And so our follicles just don't grow. And in order to get this back on track, we have to sort out the blood sugar. So anyways, I can go on, but it's all in there. And I talk about it too in Harness Your Hormones as well. That, I have a Periods 101 video lesson that I explain everything in, just so that everyone has an understanding of what exactly is going on and how blood sugar and inflammation impact your menstrual cycle on a really deep level. Okay, I just want to see what everyone's saying here. Oh, you're so welcome. Yes. Spotting after your period. That's kind of an issue too. Oftentimes I see that, and again, this is not to diagnose or anything, but often I see spotting after your period with conditions like endometriosis, adenomyosis, things like that. Not necessarily always the case though. It could just be that your uterus is just not in the right position. I know that sounds really weird, but your uterus can be malpositioned, and so it can cause blood flow the blood to not flow the way it's supposed to. And so I always recommend, if you've ever had a fall, or on a more sinister level, there's been sexual abuse or there's been trauma to your pelvis in any way, to see a pelvic floor physical therapist. Because they're the ones who are the experts on uterine position and pelvic floor function and the musculature as it relates to that part of your body. So that's, what I would recommend. But I also recommend the food stuff first. And I also think too that you guys can look into using castor oil packs over your pelvis. It's something I talked about in the book. I have a free castor oil guide on my website, NicoleJardim.com. You can go there, just search for castor oil pack guide, and you'll see it. I explain everything in there as well. So that's another option. And vaginal steaming really helps too. I know that's controversial, but I'm a big fan. I've been a big fan of it for a long time. If you are safe about it, it's totally fine. And that has really, I've seen that work wonders for spotting before and after periods. Yes, we do need to get this information out. What are your thoughts on metabolic eating? Eating protein and carbs focused on glucose in a 2-to-1 ratio and eating every 3 to 4 hours. I actually don't have any thoughts on that. I'm so sorry. Or protein to carbs in 1-to-2 ratio. I don't really have any thoughts on that. I'm not a big fan of all of these crazy, I mean, it's not crazy, but all of these, what feels like a little complicated ways of eating. I kind of think that if you stabilize your blood sugar, and stable blood sugar looks different for different people. I even quoted this in Fix Your Period, where I said that, there was a study done on hundreds of people and they were fed the same meal. They all had different blood sugar responses to it, and then they were fed more appropriate meals for their bodies, depending on what was going on with their health. Maybe lower carb for some people, things like that. And everyone had better blood sugar responses. So I just feel like we all have to figure out what works for us. And I think that testing your blood sugar is a really good option. And I also am a big fan of having a continuous glucose monitor too, if that's something that you can afford. Let's see. So I have low cortisol. Will this be affecting my blood sugar? I am having some big spikes 1 hour post meals, but returning to normal quite quickly unless I eat rice. That stuff is gone from my life. Yeah, I know that's a little tough. Rice is so challenging for some of us. The low cortisol could definitely be affecting your blood sugar. If you're having those big spikes 1 hour post meals and then it's returning to normal quite quickly, it should return to normal within about 2 hours. I don't have any extra details for you, but it certainly could be affecting it. And I think working on the low cortisol is probably the best first step, but I imagine that's probably what you're doing. Let's see, my GYN suggested going on the pill due to irregular spotting. We did every test and all was normal, but I don't want to go on birth control. She suggested low progesterone could be a reason. Okay, if I had $1 for every time I heard my tests were normal, I'm actually going to talk about this in the coming days. What tests are normal, and normal according to what? And did you actually look at your test results? And this is nothing against you by any means. I just hear this all the time. And I would say probably about 95% of the time, those tests ain't normal, according to what I would deem normal. And I'm not a doctor, but I've done enough training to know what normal is at this point. And if you have irregular spotting, there is a reason. The pill is never going to fix that. It's never going to fix it. I feel like I need to scream this from the rooftops every single day of my life, because the pill is literally just going to shut down ovulation. You do not want to shut down ovulation. When you ovulate, you make hormones that you really need, not only for your menstrual cycle, but every aspect of your health. Your bones, your skin, your hair, your mood, your brain function, your breast health. I mean, I could go on, but the point is that you do not want to take the pill to solve this problem, because it is not solving the problem. It is merely masking it. It is putting a band-aid on that. It's like seeing your house on fire and closing the door and going to work and not calling the fire department. That's basically what the pill is like for a problem like this. So if you have irregular spotting, you have to figure out what the root cause is. Are your ovaries healthy? Are you following the pillars? I outline the pillars in Fix Your Period. I talk about them in Harness Your Hormones. That's the first step for everyone. It's like, look at your food. What's happening with how you're eating? Is your blood sugar out of control? Is your stress out of control? What's happening with your thyroid? So I don't know what tests you did, but I can tell you right now that you need to do the foundational stuff. So start there. You have more control over your health than you've been led to believe, I promise you. Castor oil packs can help with clotting. Yes. Would insulin resistance cause amenorrhea or just also have an impact on it? 100%. I can tell you how many, I've seen many periods disappear and come back once insulin resistance has been addressed. All right, how long does it usually take on average to regulate after being on the pill for a couple of years? Going on over a year now, had blood tests done and everything looks good. Again, what are those tests that you had done? And what do you mean they look good? And if your cycle is not normal, I don't know what's going on here, then clearly the test results aren't conclusive, are they? Because you would see that there's a reflection of something happening with your body in your test results if the right things are being tested. So just keep that in mind. But it really depends. I tell everyone, if you were on the pill for however many years, say 8 years, I recommend giving yourself 1 to 2 months of quote unquote recovery, because it really is that for many of us, for every year you've been on the pill. And if you went on the pill for a specific problem, like irregular cycles or heavy periods or whatever, period pain like me, then that problem is going to still be there when you come off. It's not just magically gone away. The pill didn't fix it. It didn't address it. It didn't help it in any way. It just told your body to shut off ovulation, which is basically the mechanism by which the pill works. And that's not a solution. So it really depends. I think that, it requires diligent nutrition, supplement intake, managing your stress, really focusing on your gut health. You guys, I cannot tell you how much our gut health plays into all of this. It's so crucial. This is why I talk about this a lot in Harness Your Hormones, because it's one of those things that, is always overlooked, and we're not even realizing that it's impacting us. But harmful bacteria can leak through a leaky gut, and it can wreak havoc throughout our bodies, including our ovaries. So it's really crucial. In fact, if you don't believe that this is the thing, I can tell you right now, I've had clients with celiac, and the studies even show it, actually. I've had clients with celiac, their intestines are so damaged, they're not getting the nutrients that they need, and they lose their periods, because ovulation, just so everyone knows, is a really energy intensive act by the body. This is no joke, right? Your body is literally producing an endocrine gland that is 2 to 5 centimeters long that is putting out an egg and is producing all this progesterone. You know how much energy that takes? It's like a mitochondrial powerhouse, those little ovaries. And it requires a great deal of effort on the part of our bodies. And guess what? It's not necessary in a life and death situation. So the first thing that is going to go is your ovarian function when your body senses a crisis, whether that is external, like a stressful event, or internal, like celiac disease, which is a really stressful experience for your body. So this is the case for anything: food sensitivities, gut dysbiosis, low thyroid function and autoimmune disease, parasites, any kind of underlying infection. This is really crucial. Mold toxicity, this is another one, something I'm going to be talking about a lot more in coming months, because I feel like there's just no understanding of this, and it's not at all recognized by mainstream medicine, so we're left kind of without answers. So that's my long answer for your short question. I'm 39 and trying to conceive. What tests do I need to check my fertility? I would test your FSH and LH and your estradiol, as well as your prolactin, on days 2 to 4 of your cycle, preferably day 3. I would also test estradiol again and progesterone 5 to 7 days post-ovulation. I would potentially test AMH, but I feel like there's a lot of emphasis put on AMH, and it's just one hormone. So do it at your own risk, because you're probably going to be told all kinds of bad things about it. But I would test those hormones. I would also do a full thyroid panel. So that includes TSH, that's thyroid stimulating hormone. I would test free T4 and free T3, and the thyroid antibodies, just to make sure your thyroid, there are no antibodies associated with your thyroid, meaning that there's a potential autoimmune thyroid condition. So those are the things I would test. But honestly, all the testing is great, but at the end of the day, you still have to do the work. You still have to be the best home possible for your growing baby. And the way to do that is to hone in on your nutrition. How are you eating? How are you responding to events in your life? What's happening with your gut? Because again, your oral health as well, by the way, it's all attached to your gut. And this is a critical component of your overall health. Your thyroid function. Low thyroid function means that your body temperature is going to be low, your basal temperature is going to be lower. You'll notice that if you're taking your body temperature every single morning, if you're practicing a fertility awareness-based method of birth control, or you're just practicing fertility awareness and want to know what's going on with your body, and you want to know if and when you're ovulating. And when your thyroid function is low, which for many people it is, your basal temperature will be low, and that temperature, or your body temperature, is just not high enough to support a growing a fertilized egg. So you really need to have all of this stuff under control. And the first place and the easiest place to start is your diet. So that's what I would say about that. All right, I have longer cycles, 36 days, and have noticed very dark blood most periods and bad cramping, other PMS. Any suggestions? Yep, everything I just talked about. I have a big follicular cyst. I do not have PCOS and have regular cycles, but my OB wants me to go on birth control to get rid of the cyst. I don't want to go do the pill, but I'm not sure what to do. Everything I've been talking about, you guys, honestly, this stuff is across the board what needs to happen for everyone. So if you're not checking off the boxes that I'm just talking about right now, if you're not, like here, we'll talk about this. And this is also like laid out in my Harness Your Hormones program too, which, as I was saying earlier, it's literally on sale for like 80-something% off. It's $27. And it's a 4-week program. And so we're talking about, the program is my book is based on all of my work, but the program and the book go really well together, because if you have a hard time following things in books, which I do, even though I wrote one, it's helpful because you can see me on video, and I have handouts and I have explanations. I also have lots of bonuses as well, best period ever supplement guide, bulletproof your fertility. So for who just asked about your trying to conceive, it's really helpful. I describe all the nutrients that you really need to focus on from the food and from a supplement perspective. All right, so in week 1, I'm talking about this. And again, I'm talking about this in Harness Your Hormones too. This idea of making your plate. See that there? Yeah. So we start here. We start with this. We just start with bringing more food into our diets that are going to feed our bodies. They're going to feed our ovaries, that are going to reduce inflammation and stabilize our blood sugar and give us more energy, so that we can sleep better, so that we can function better in our lives. That really is the case for all of us. And I cannot recommend this enough. Because like the ovarian cysts, like you said this about your ovarian cysts, your OB wanting to go on the pill, that's the only thing they know what to do. That's the only thing they've been trained to offer. And I get it. I understand that that's how medical school is now. And that's just the nature of conventional medicine. But I can tell you right now that obviously you know this, your gut is telling you that that is not the solution. So I would start with your blood sugar, not even kidding. If you have cysts on your ovaries, or you have a cyst on your ovary that is not going away, start with your blood sugar. What I just explained about how blood sugar messes with your ovarian function, it's critical. So just consider that. And I'm going to show you guys how to test your blood sugar in a second. Start and stop periods. My period stops for one day and then continues the next. What does this mean? It means that there's potentially a physical issue happening. Like I described earlier, I would see a pelvic PT, so pelvic physical therapist. You can Google that, or even search online on Instagram. There are a bunch of them on here as well. But online you can find databases of pelvic physical therapists, or someone who does like soft tissue work. My friend Jennifer Mercier, she does something called Mercier therapy. So that's basically like soft tissue work for your uterus, and it's hardcore. But she trains people as well. So there's people all over the US. There's others throughout the world who do this work too. Visceral manipulation therapy, very similar to what Jennifer does. There are tons of practitioners everywhere who do visceral manipulation, and you have to look and make sure that they've been trained in the pelvic area, because visceral manipulation therapy training encompasses the whole body. So I would look into that. But I would also consider vaginal steaming. I would consider castor oil packs. You can do pelvic massage. You can go on YouTube and find that as well. There's plenty of things. I also have an article on my website about start and stop periods. If you Google start and stop periods, Nicole Jardim, you will find it. And I talk about all this stuff in detail. Once I turn 35, does that mean it will be hard to conceive and carry? No, it 100% does not. Please don't let people tell you these things. I hate this with a passion, because there's this insane myth that we fall off of a hormonal cliff at the age of 35 and then again at 40 something because we go into perimenopause. And it's just bullshit. It really is. And please don't believe that, but take care of yourself. If there's anything that all of you take away from this, it's that you need to put yourself first. Honestly, you need to decide that you're going to take care of your health in a way that is going to make you have the life that you want to have. And the only way to do that is to start with these foundations. I know I'm a broken record, but truly. I have PCOS, fibroids in the uterus, and IBS issues. I stopped birth control over 8 years ago, but I was on them almost 10 years. I suffer abdominal pain every time I try to ovulate. Metformin or Inositol. I can't make that recommendation. I'm so sorry. This Metformin is a drug. It's prescribed by doctors, so that's something that you'll have to decide. I'm a huge fan of Inositol. I love Ovasitol. It's Myo and Decairo Inositol combined in the exact formula that it is in your bodies. It's like a 40-to-1 ratio. So I'm a big fan of Ovasitol, and it works really well. Metformin comes with side effects, so just be informed and check into that. And I would say that's not the only thing you need to be doing though with PCOS particularly. And again, I don't know what you're doing, and for everyone, I don't know what any of you are doing. I'm just preaching over here because I feel like it's really important for all of us to know that these are the basic things that we should all be trying to do. And I recognize too that that's not always possible for many of us. And I recognize as well, sometimes it's just supplements, and that's the bridge that's going to get you to the place where you have more energy and more bandwidth to do the next thing that's going to be really helpful for your health. So I recognize that, and I want everyone to, do the best they can do. I know we're all doing that right now. I have not slept properly in like 2 weeks because my puppy Charlie has been sick. He's been throwing up at 4 or 5 in the morning every morning. And we've taken him to the vet. We had deworming medication. We've done multiple things. And funnily enough, last night was the first night that he did not throw up. My point saying is that, and funnily enough, it's because I put him on a probiotic and grapefruit seed extract, which is really great for dogs. Great for humans too. Look it up. But I have not slept properly in literally 2 weeks. And I am like, wow. Talking to all of my parent friends, just like in awe of all of you people. I don't know how you do this for years on end. I have been a freaking wreck. And so for me, it's been really hard to have the energy and the motivation to eat better or to eat well and to exercise. I'm like, exercise, give me a break. I can't exercise when I'm exhausted like this. So I truly understand, and I know because I was sick a long time ago in my early 20s, and this is what led me down this path. But I really do know that it's so difficult. It's so difficult when you are exhausted and you're in pain and your menstrual cycle is like, it's just awful. So I trust that everyone is going to do what they need to do to support their health. And even if it's working on just one thing, like maybe you're going to bed 1 hour earlier, or maybe you're just getting to bed and you're not even going to sleep, or maybe you're putting the phone in the other room and you're reading a book instead, an actual book. These are little things that really add up. I want everyone to remember that addressing your health issues is not as complicated as we've been led to believe. Like you just mentioned, young lady here with the PCOS and fibroids. This is, these are very much estrogen, fibroids is very much driven by estrogen, by runaway estrogen. And I don't know who you're working with, but I highly recommend working with someone who is like me, a nutritional therapist, a women's health coach. My good friend, Christine Garvin, she's on Instagram. You'll find her here. It's Garvin. She works specifically with fibroids. She had a very horrific experience with her own fibroids. There are multiple women who I follow and who follow me who are PCOS experts. There's tons of books on PCOS as well. But the bottom line is like these foundational pillars have to be addressed. I think the blood sugar is so crucial for this because it's going to address the inflammatory PCOS disorder and also the estrogen dominance that's causing your fibroids to grow. So it doesn't need to be this hard. There don't need to be this many moving parts. It's just a matter of honing in on like a few things that you feel are doable for you, because I know we all do this, right? We're like, oh yeah, I'm going to buy this program and I'm going to spend all this money and the supplements and this and that and whatever. And then we don't do any of it because we're already immediately in overwhelm. And it's almost like a response, it's like a traumatic response for our bodies, because we're overwhelmed by it, but we really have good intentions, and then we set ourselves up for disappointment. So I'm a big fan of just doing one thing at a time. Anyway, I'm going to talk about blood sugar in a second. All right, so blood sugar testing, that is, because I really want to show everyone it's easy. You're so welcome. My cycle length varies with the moon cycle. Sometimes I get my period on the new moon, and sometimes it's on the full moon. This does not matter. Doesn't mean anything, I promise you, no matter what people tell you. The moon cycles, we're all in sync with nature at the end of the day. And I talked about this with my friend Jen Rasiobi, who has a book called Cosmic Health. It just came out a few months ago. We wrote our books together, actually. So we spent 2019 in hell, basically. And, when it comes to the moon cycle, she talks about this a lot because she gets this question often. It's that it doesn't matter. And our cycles fluctuate. The moon cycle does not. The moon cycle is 29 and a half days, always and forever. Our menstrual cycles are not. And your cycle will fluctuate with the moon cycle because of that, unless you have a perpetually 29-day long cycle, which none of us do. Okay, I know birth control and cancer risk are correlated. Does cancer risk decrease once synthetic birth control is stopped? Yes, that's my understanding. Yes, you should probably check out my friend Sarah Hill. She wrote the book Your Brain and Birth Control, and Jolene Brighton as well, Beyond the Pill. They both talk about that in there. I don't talk about it in my book. I didn't have enough room. Is taking DHEA and bioidentical progesterone help you get back on track for the short term? I have estrogen dominance and my TSH has skyrocketed. Did the TSH skyrocket because of the DHEA? I'm not entirely sure what you mean by that. I honestly don't want to answer questions about the bioidentical hormones or hormones in general, just because it's so tricky and it's so individualized. And really, I strongly recommend working with a practitioner. When you're taking DHEA, remember, DHEA is a parent hormone, and below that parent hormone is estradiol, testosterone. And so it makes these hormones, or your body makes these hormones from the DHEA, and you never know which way it's going to go. When I take DHEA, my testosterone definitely rises, which is great for my sex drive. I'm like, sweet. However, my hair starts falling out. I get really fucking angry. My moods definitely change. So I've experimented with this stuff, but it's an experiment. So I strongly caution people who are taking these things to not take them alone and to work with a practitioner on this. The progesterone can also be problematic too. Just so everyone knows, too little progesterone and too much progesterone kind of have the same impact. It really sucks. And so you're going to feel similar symptoms. It definitely changes your mood. So it makes you more moody. It causes weight gain. It just makes you feel kind of sluggish. So just keep that in mind with progesterone if you're noticing that. Oh, good. I'm glad you're loving the live. Awesome. I have low estrogen, and the OBGYN said to take metadroxyprogesterone, 10 milligrams for 10 days. Should I not? I haven't gotten my period in a year and have tried your book, Rex. Help. Okay, first of all, I can't make that recommendation either. This is your doctor. You either work with your doctor on this or not. That basically what that is a progesterone challenge. So what they're telling you is to take, it's a synthetic progesterone, just so you know. So it's a progestin. So they're telling you to take this progesterone for 10 days, which is essentially almost like a luteal phase. So after you ovulate, you would be producing progesterone. And when your corpus luteum starts to disintegrate, the progesterone level drops pretty significantly, right? You'll see that on a temperature. So your temperature drops, your progesterone has dropped. And what happens is that is a sign or a trigger to your uterine lining to start to disintegrate and exit the building. So that's the same thing that they're trying to emulate here. You take the progestin for 10 days, you stop suddenly, and the idea is that if your uterine lining has built up enough, you will shed it. And what that means is that you have high enough estrogen to have built that uterine lining, but you don't have, but you're not ovulating. So it's not enough estrogen to push, so basically you don't have enough estrogen to like get the egg out of the follicle. So that's essentially what's happening there. Like you don't have that LH surge because you don't have enough estrogen. So what I would say to you is, I don't know what you've tried from my book. There's so many different factors that play into lack of ovulation. It could be too low calories, not enough protein and fat, a vegan or a plant-based diet. I'm really sorry, guys. It's just not for everyone. But I see that a lot too. Gut health issues. Is there celiac, like I mentioned before? How long were you on the pill? Are you underweight? Do you have enough body fat? All of these factors play into the low estrogen, lack of ovulation scenario. Again, it's really difficult to say without having more information. I'm definitely saving this live. Don't worry. All right, you just signed up. Amazing. Okay, yes, totally saving it. No worries. Good. I'm so glad you're getting your book. Hi, Catherine. I'm 36. I've been diagnosed with low progesterone, trying to conceive second child for 6+ months. What can I do to naturally elevate levels? I've talked about this. Again, if you're diagnosed with low progesterone, you've got to figure out whether you're ovulating. And if you are ovulating consistently, are you having a healthy ovulation? I just did a whole series on this. I talked about all the different causes of low progesterone. The point here is that the low progesterone is just linked back to, I'll say this again. All those causes I listed out, I think it's in like part 4 of that series, that just scroll back on my Instagram. All of those things are causing lack of ovulation, inconsistent ovulation, or a low quality ovulation, essentially. So that's what's going on. I would definitely consider that. And again, remember, your hormones do not exist in a vacuum. They don't work independently of each other. So you've got to figure out why the progesterone is low. If your progesterone is low, there's likely other hormonal issues happening too. So just keep that in mind as well. I'm not in love with this diagnosis of low progesterone, because it makes you think that you have to just quote unquote fix the low progesterone, and we can't do that. You can't just fix the low progesterone. You could take more progesterone, but it's still not going to change the fact that your body is not producing enough progesterone for a reason. So we have to look at the reasons why. I know that this is antithesis to conventional medicine and to their whole system, but we have to look at the whole system or the whole body and figure out what's going on. And I know that feels really daunting, but remember, there are only a few things that are contributing to this, right? Lack of nutrients, maybe because of gut dysbiosis or leaky gut, or some other gut problem like celiac disease, for instance. You can't absorb nutrients properly if you have undiagnosed and untreated celiac disease, or some other inflammatory bowel situation happening. Is your thyroid working okay? Because like I said before, you need enough thyroid hormone in order to ovulate consistently. You need enough magnesium and zinc and selenium and vitamin B6. So it's all in my book. I talk about this extensively. I spare no detail. Lots of studies. What's the cause of spotting for a couple days before and a couple days after my period? I came off the pill 6 months ago. I talked about this. When you've come off the pill, everyone who's just come off the pill, just remember, the pill has stopped ovulation. So it has shut down the conversation between your brain and your ovaries. This is a huge problem. Again, I'm not trying to scare anyone. I'm just saying that while you're on the pill, it's problematic. Once you come off, you want to make sure you're ovulating again. So the spotting could be multiple things, but I would say that you want to start tracking your cycle. I lay this out in chapter 1 of the book. I talk about like what's normal and what's not for periods. I talk about this in Harness Your Hormones as well. So the spotting will go away once you start to ovulate consistently, and and your hormones are where they're supposed to be. The spotting before is your progesterone is dropping too much, too fast in the lead up to your period, or it's just not high enough to begin with. It holds the uterine lining in place. So progestation, that's that hormone. All right. Oh my gosh, you guys, I have so many questions here. There's no way I'm getting through all of this. I'm so sorry. I will come back next week. Don't worry. We're going to do this again and again. I want to test my blood sugar because I want to show you all how to do this thing. And I got to find there it is. I'm using a little spray because I can't wash my hands right now and I don't have a napkin, which is really annoying. So I'll just wipe it on my dress. It's like so ghetto. All right. So spray, I use this finger because I feel like it's the one that's strongest. And this doesn't really hurt that much, just so everyone knows. So you use the thing. I never remember the name of this. I'm so sorry. It's kind of embarrassing, but it's the thing that you prick your finger with. So you put this little cap on top and you pull this back and you lock it so that it's ready to go. I have the number set to 2, as you can see there. So it doesn't really prick your finger that deep. And then I already put the little, oh my God, the strip into the glucometer. I ate breakfast. It's what, 1 o'clock, almost 1 o'clock now. So I ate breakfast. Oh my God, I can't even remember. So I'm not sure what my blood sugar is gonna look like because it's been a little while. So it should really be reset. However, I've been doing this. I've been talking for an hour. I haven't had any water to drink, so we'll see what's going on. But all right, so basically you just like put your finger up against this like this, and that's it. I pricked it. And there's a blood spot. See? It's really easy. And then you turn on the glucometer like that, and you just put your finger up against the little thingy. Oh shit, I got an error. Damn, sorry guys. Hold on, let me try that again. But the point is that you can do this to see what's going on with your blood sugar, because testing at the doctor, they're just going to test your blood sugar. Hold on, I'm going to try this again. All right, I'm going to just like prick my finger again one more time. You can test your blood sugar at the doctor, but remember, they're only testing like first thing in the morning, and you're fasting. And so you want to test your fasting on your own, and you also want to test it after you've eaten certain meals, even certain foods, to determine what's going on, because that way you can, really see what's like, how things are impacting you. All right, let's try this again. Okay. All right. Okay, so, all right, moment of truth. All right, so it's 86. So I ate breakfast at like 9 something. So it's been about 4 hours. So it's on a little bit high. Like I like to see it at somewhere between 75 and 85. So it's about there, but I'm a little dehydrated. So there's that. So that's the whole point, right? Is that you want to make sure that that's stable. And when you stabilize it, you will see massive changes. And so that's something that, super easy for you to do. It's a little biohacking tool. You can buy a whole kit on Amazon for like $25, maybe $30. And that should last you for like a month of, doing multiple testing, every day, which I outline, in the book, in my Fix Your Blood Sugar protocol on my programs page. And this is something, like I said, that is going to have far-reaching effects on your overall health, on your menstrual cycle, on your ovarian function. And for anyone who's trying to get pregnant as well, it's so huge because blood sugar stabilization during pregnancy is challenging. This has a lot to do with the crazy hormonal fluctuations that happen, but this is why, you're tested for gestational diabetes. And you can, if you are struggling with blood sugar and you kind of know based on the symptoms I described earlier in the conversation, then I recommend, going and getting tested. So you can test your own blood sugar, of course, that's going to tell you a lot, but test your fasting glucose, test your fasting insulin, and then, even do an oral glucose test, which is what they do during pregnancy. And that'll test your fasting glucose and insulin, and then it'll test it again 1 hour and 2 hours later. And you can see what's going on, especially with your insulin. That'll show whether there's insulin resistance or not. But for the most part, I feel like generally most of us we just have dysregulated blood sugar and, possibly a little bit of insulin dysregulation, but it's easily reversible. And as I said in the beginning, this affects your actual blood vessels. So it affects you at the foundation of your body. And so, and this creates this inflammation and this inflammatory storm, so to speak. And then that drives all of it, the menstrual pain, the migraines, the ovulatory pain, the ovarian cysts. It's going to drive, all of the period related problems that many of us experience. And so we'll see a pretty big improvement when we start to address that. All right, let's see. Do you prefer that method of testing versus a continuous glucose monitor? I don't. I actually am getting a continuous glucose monitor, but they're expensive and not everyone can afford that. So this is, just another option that I think is much more affordable for most people. So I would say do what you can afford to do. All right. Yeah, I know. I need to turn on and put the strip in. Yeah, I did turn it on. And then, I do it the other way. Anyway, it's all good. Optimal carb intake for a healthy menstrual cycle, not too low or not too high. I don't really have an optimal carb intake. Again, I don't really subscribe to the measurement of food and things like that. If that is your jam, run with it. Seriously, girlfriend, do your thing, do you? But I don't personally do that. I think that it really just depends on what's going on with your body and, your body weight, your activity level, all of it. I talked a little bit about this in my book, but more than anything, I want people to eat and feel satisfied with the food that they've had or the meal that they've had versus counting macros and things like that. Again, if that's something that works for you and you've found great success with that, and there are people who highly recommend that I think that's so great. But just for me personally, it's just not something I've ever done. So I don't even have really an opinion on it, actually. And I also think too, life is overwhelming enough for so many of us that adding that in, it can be even harder. So just my thoughts. All right, I should jump off now because we've been on this for an hour. Let's see. Does your menstrual cycle affect your blood sugar? It does. I will say this one last time before I go, and I talked about this in Harness Your Hormones and within the book as well. But what's really interesting is that estradiol, so it's high in the first half of your cycle in the follicular phase, it actually has an insulin sensitizing effect on your body, which is so cool. And so you'll notice that in that first half of your cycle, you can eat things that you might not be able to eat in your second half, and you won't feel the same effects. So I'll notice, I do this because I experiment, obviously, but I'll notice if I eat sugar or, like cake or something like that, I don't have the same blood sugar effect on, because I'll test my blood sugar. And I don't have the same effect as in like moods and things like that or sleep. But in the second half of my cycle, if I do that, and of course it's the time when we crave this stuff, naturally, so unfair. What happens is it definitely has a more pronounced effect. So in the second half of your cycle, progesterone actually has a blood sugar lowering effect. It's a good thing. But what happens if we have these really high spikes, progesterone will basically pull our blood sugar even lower. So we end up in a situation where we have a lot more of these hypoglycemic situations throughout that second half of our cycle. And, that makes us more tired, more irritable, more angry, moody. Our sleep is compromised. We feel more achy, things like that. So just keep that in mind. Pay attention. Yeah, you don't want to go into low carb. Yeah. What did you say? Yeah, I've had my labs done right before my period and got an elevated result. I don't want to go low carb and then create other issues. Yes. Again, I would just test your blood sugar and pay attention to the testing on your own versus that, because that's just a one-time snapshot and it's not going to tell you a whole lot. If it was elevated, it could be for many reasons. It could just be that you were nervous to take the blood work in the beginning. So testing your own blood sugar is way more accurate, I think, personally. So yeah, it's pretty crazy what our menstrual cycles will do. Thank you all again so much. This is so great. And just so I'll reiterate this, I have this whole outline. I have this outlined in the book, right? So it's there. This is my book birthday month, by the way. It came out a year ago, April 28th, almost a year. Peak pandemic, not an awesome time to release a book. Really sucked. So if you bought it and loved it, I would love for you to leave a review. That always helps so much. I'm aiming to get a few more reviews on the book. And so that's available. I'm also doing signed book giveaways and I'm giving away a bunch of things, actually, tons of products, starting the week of April 26th. So keep that in mind. So for a whole week, we're doing all giveaways to celebrate the 1-year birthday. Harness Your Hormones. So as I mentioned, this program is like 89% off. It's got a lot of different things, but I created it with all of you in mind. And like I said, it doesn't take away from the book, or the book doesn't take away from it. They're both very helpful, but it's always really nice to have video lessons and have handouts and have an explanation from me, just walking you through all of this stuff. And I'm basically walking you through the remaining 4 weeks of the protocol after you start on, week 3. So week 3, 4, 5, and 6. So I'm talking you and walking you through the elimination of certain foods, bringing in other foods that are really helpful. And then I have, tons of bonuses as well too, like, your best period ever supplement guide, your bulletproof your fertility guide, a few other things that I think are really, really useful for anyone who's on this journey. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter what's going on with your period. I want everyone to just start to add in little bits here and there. I said too, you can do things like castor oil packs and vaginal steaming, and you can look into pelvic massage, and you can also do things like seed cycling. All of these little things are going to help. And then supplements. Sometimes we need a few supplements. And I think that, magnesium is so helpful. I think that zinc and selenium can be really helpful. I think a multivitamin that's a broad spectrum or a prenatal is also really useful in many cases. For those of you who don't have periods, I'm a big fan of that. I'm a big fan of trying a multivitamin just so that you're covering all your bases. Because I know that nutrition, it's not always easy or possible to cover, to get all the nutrients that you need. And yeah, fish oil as well. That's another one, a B complex. So those are some of the nutrients that are so useful for overall health. I'm going to talk next week about gut health. I have a whole gut healing protocol that I think that we should all consider if we have gut related issues. And even if we don't have gut related issues, I'm going to talk about some of the symptoms that we might experience if we have gut health problems and we're not having any gut health problems, so to speak. But yeah, other symptoms outside of gut related problems that are indicative that there's something going on with your GI tract. So I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about the gut healing protocol because, again, that's, I think, another foundation that we are just struggling with a lot because it's confusing. And if there's no validation from our doctors around this being a problem for our overall health, then what do we do and where do we go? So we'll talk about that too. All right. Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. It was really great to see you all. Thank you for your questions. I wish I could get to all of them. I'm so sorry that I can't. I'll try my best. If you message me on here, I'll try my best to get to them, but I get a lot of messages. So we'll figure it out one way or another. Come back next week. All right. Talk to you all so soon. Thank you again. I'll talk to you later. Bye.